Happy Monday, everybody. Monday starts the week, and we are here to make your Monday Night Football a profitable one through the props betting market. Welcome to Prop It Up. I am Andy Lang from WagerTalk.com, being joined, as always, by my fellow prop master, Andrew McGinnis from WagerTalk.com, fresh off of his big 5% win on A.J. Brown last night. We're going to talk 49ers and Vikings. As of now, it does look like Christian McCaffrey is going to play. It's just a matter of, how much is he going to play? So we're going to have to kind of tippy-toe around these props tonight, but Andrew and I are going to do our best. And remember, guys, you do not have to bet Monday Night Football big. You don't have to bet it at all. Let's be careful, and let's find our best spots possible. Go ahead and hit that like button, guys, and let's get into it. Andrew, so Justin Jefferson not in this game. Christian McCaffrey banged up like a few weeks ago. This looked like it could have been a really huge, game with a bunch of big names, but it's changed here. So when you're looking at a game like this, I guess before we get into the very, very specifics, how do you look at a game like this? What's the approach when we're handicapping a Monday Night Football where we've got some big name guys banged up and out?
Well, I mean, obviously you want to try and find the rose between the thorns. You want to try and find just like the guys kind of deeper in the depth chart, but also, as you talked about, Andy, using a cautious approach. I mean, you can earn a few units off one or two plays the same way you can do it off 6 or 7 plays. So just a reminder for everybody else out there, it's one game tonight. You do not have to spray the board, but you're picking certain opportunities. And this is the thing, Andy, about this Vikings team is that they might be a little banged up, but you look at what Kirk Cousins has been able to do, no matter who he's been throwing to, he's been able to make some plays. So we'll get to that in a second, but I just really quick, Andy, wanted to say this. A huge thank you to everybody that commented, interacted on Twitter, and hit the like button on our video on Friday. A ton of views, a ton of reactions, and I've been getting some actual personal messages, Andy, since we did that segment talking about how we, go about all of our plays, seeing as you and I give out like 2 or 3 picks per game. And I appreciate everyone's feedback. I've had people reach out, say like, hey, I know you didn't say you bet every pick, but what do you really think about this one? And I just want to say that means a lot to us. And Andy and I really do enjoy going over every single game. So just wanted to mention that. And Andy, I think you got to be just really cautious, but also find your certain targets. I mean, I'll talk about it in a little bit, but a guy like Hawkinson keeps on going. So I'm not going to think twice about it. You find certain people that are just going to be open and stick to it.
Andrew, you're coming off a really, really nice win last night. So go ahead and tell everyone what you have up, where we can find you. And let's start breaking down these props. And we'll start with the passing props, Brock Purdy and Kirk Cousins in this one.
Yeah, let's do it, Andy, and have a 8-1 NFL prop run for me. So the sides yesterday didn't go my way. We'll put it that way. I had Chargers and Cardinals, 2 dogs that I pretty much needed a backdoor cover. Couldn't get one. So full transparency, wasn't a great sides day, but pretty good prop day yesterday. So 8-1 NFL prop run. Have one up for tonight. And you can grab a 30-day NFL prop package at my homepage there, wt.buzz/am. Andy, diving into this one here, obviously you've got the Niners coming in super hungry, rested, and coming off a performance they're not happy about. Now, you look at the situation here for Brock Purdy. For me, I have a bone to pick with everybody that talks about players that play on really good teams that are just game managers, right? Like, how many times do you see social media or NFL Network or people talk about, is Brock Purdy really the guy, or is he just on a good team? That stuff bothers me because he still has to sling it. He still has to make some of these dynamic throws. And I like him over 1.5 passing touchdowns, the old reliable that you got me on last year. This to me is a really good matchup. It's a really good defense. I've had a ton of success betting on quarterbacks against the Minnesota Vikings defense. And realistically, despite some of these offensive issues, it really hasn't been the Vikings offense that struggled. It's just been their defense just really hurting them in a big way. So I like the over 1.5 passing touchdowns there for Brock Purdy. Taking a look at some stuff really quick for Cousins. 279.8 passing yards per game is 63.4 yards higher than the number he's being given today for his prop. And obviously this is against a Niners team that, number one, is really good against the run, but also gets quite a bit of a lead on most people. So you kind of have to throw the ball. But here's the deal, Andy. I have learned and gotten better at not just blindly looking at some of these overs for quarterbacks I think will lose. That was my old strategy, was quite a bit. You'd find me more betting on quarterbacks that are going to be in a losing position, because I do expect the Vikings to lose. But I realize the 32.5 number for attempts is a lot to get to. And I look at this for Kirk, and I just think that it's going to take a lot. There's some 33s and 34s even. It's going to take a lot of things to go right for them to have the ball enough times. And you throw in the couple times they will run the ball. I don't think Kirk Cousins throws the ball that many times, let alone looking at his completion percentage. This is a Niners team that not only can run the score up on you, they utilize the clock very well. So in the time being, they're mixing in their running game, they're throwing the ball. I just don't think that, even though they're going to be down, I don't think Kirk Cousins is able to get the ball off enough. So to me, I think the best prop for Kirk Cousins to look at is just the under on his attempts. And you already know that number's hiked up because they do expect him to be down. So over 1.5 passing touchdowns for Purdy and under on pass attempts for Kirk Cousins.
Well, this is going to be fun. I've got a little bit of different opinion on this game. I did a video talking about the Colts and Browns. That was a game I had to talk about. And I said I thought it might be a letdown spot for the amazing Cleveland defense because of how brutal and physical that 49ers and Browns game was. It was drizzling, 17-19, hard hits. You got Deebo Samuel now with a hairline fracture on his shoulder. And sure enough, that Cleveland defense was awful yesterday. And I wonder if this San Francisco defense, I don't want to call it a look ahead, but maybe they're just a little bit tired here. You've got Kirk Cousins, who's amazing on primetime. I'm kidding. But you do have the Vikings at home. And maybe this is a little bit of a letdown spot, or there's just a half step slow. I actually think the Vikings have some success. I kind of like Kirk Cousins tonight. I'm looking at DraftKings right now, and I can do a same game parlay of Brock Purdy to have 200 plus passing yards and Kirk Cousins to have 200 plus passing yards. This is a San Francisco team that, if they're winning, teams do throw on them. But if the game is close, the teams are still going to have to throw. So I don't see a scenario where the Vikings abandon the pass completely. They've had one game under their belt without Justin Jefferson, so I think they get another full week of trying to get on the same page with everybody. And they kind of it's maybe a little bit more difficult for San Francisco to plan for instead of just having Justin Jefferson running around. Like, they're going to have to try and figure out, where's TJ Hawkinson at all times? With KJ Osborne, do they run some good plays for Brandon Powell? What do they do with their running back? So I think Minnesota can get creative tonight. They really don't have anything to lose in this game. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if we're watching this game going, man, San Francisco just doesn't look completely dialed in. So I'm actually looking at Kirk Cousins over his props, and I'm looking at Brock Purdy over. I don't want to take both of them on their original lines, but if you use the same game parlay, I think you can get these guys at 200 plus yards, and I think we see them throwing the ball a little bit. So those are your passing props. Andrew likes the Brock Purdy over one.
Does that mean you like the game over? I know it's a prop show, but does that correlate? If you like both quarterbacks over,
I do.
Do you like the game over? Okay.
Yeah, the total in the Browns and Colts was 39, or is 39 or 42, depending on when you played it. And I think that was over in the first half. So,
right.
Once that game started, you could just tell the Cleveland defense was a little bit tired. I know 49ers have one extra day of rest, but I'm not going to be surprised indoors. Remember that Cleveland San Francisco was outdoors. The San Francisco kicker missed 2 kicks. This is weather's not an issue here. I would not be surprised if there's some points in this game. So, what do you think about rushing props? We're banking that Christian McCaffrey is going to play, but obviously we don't have props out for the 49ers running back. So, do you have anything for rushing props in this one at this point, Andrew?
Andy, you might get a kick out of this because I said I like the under on Kirk Cousins' attempts, and now I'm also taking the under on Alexander Madison. So everyone's going to wonder, well, who the hell is going to do anything if you like the under on everybody? Look, I really think a lot of my handicap here in this one is the Niners are a great team, but they sometimes take a long time to march the field. Just with that mixing in the run game, mixing in the passing game, and also going up the middle to guys like Kittle. Like, they don't always stretch the field with like 20, 30, 40-yard plays. And if that's the case, they take a lot of time and the clock starts ticking and ticking and ticking, and it takes away time that Minnesota has the ball. On this show quite a bit, I talk about attempts and targets. A lot of times in my handicapping, looking at a guy that got a ton of targets but wasn't able to produce, I want to look at that person the next week. It's kind of like for me with hockey. I'm not a huge analytical guy, but if I see a team, the expected goal numbers were 4 and they scored 1 goal, well, maybe things just weren't going their way that night. The fact of the matter is, Alexander Mattison in the last matchup against the Chicago Bears had 18 carries and didn't go over this number. 18 carries. So if you got a guy running into his offensive line that many times and averaging like 1 yard per carry, or sorry, 3.9 yards per carry, I don't really want to bet on him against the third best running defense in the league. And people forget how good this Niners defense is on both ends, the pass defense and rush, but they make things very difficult for teams early, especially in the first half, defending the run. For them to run the ball. And then what happens is teams get so frustrated they can't run the ball. They make it so obvious they're going to throw the ball, and it becomes very easy to defend. So the number might seem light for people, but if I see this team going down early in the game, especially going into the half, I think Madison gets very minimal touches in the second half, and that sets me up for a winner. So the way I look at it, Andy, this one is pretty much solely relying on what the score is going into the second half and how many touches Madison ends up getting. But look, that many carries against a team like the Bears, and you can't get over this number, I got to fade you the next week.
I love Madison over at 11.5. I love Madison over 11.5 rush attempts. I just want his attempts. Okay. I like his opportunity. I don't like his production. 18 carries. And I mean, listen, 2.4 yards against the Bears, not exactly great, but they need him to run the ball tonight. They need to keep the defense a little bit honest. You cannot let Kirk Cousins drop back and throw it 55 times without Justin Jefferson in the lineup. You just can't. So this would not surprise me if you see a similar stat line to last week, like where it's like 15 carries for 37 yards. And you're just like, oh God, I have him in fantasy and he got me 4.6 points, but I think he gets over this rush attempts. This is not that many when you're the starting running back. And if San Francisco is struggling just a little bit, if they're just a half step slow on defense, they're going to keep running it if they have any little bit of success, just to keep the defense honest. So if this game is close, they're not going to abandon it. We saw it last week. And this is a guy that has had 20 against the Chargers, 17 against Carolina. He only had 8 against Kansas City, but then 18 against Chicago. So I think he gets the opportunity. I certainly would not take his over longest rush attempt. I certainly would not take over his total. But are they going to hand it to him 12 times? Yeah, I think they do, especially if this game is close, which it could be. So let's move into the receiving.
A chance for us both to win.
This is great. Yes, we're agreeing to disagree, and hopefully we'll both meet each other at the ticket window here. Let's talk about receiving props, because there are a lot of receiving props out in this one. I think we can do some damage with this. So what jumps off the page here for you, the receiving props?
Yeah, first and foremost, obviously everyone, know Kirk Cousins. So who's the guy? And Jordan Addison. He's someone I talked about early in the season, Andy, and I'm disappointed that I kind of got off him. It's one of those things where if you lose a few tickets betting on a guy, you kind of like get mad at him and you stop betting on them. And then like the next 3 weeks, he went over his receiving yards. Very frustrating. But it happens to all of us across all sports. I'm looking at his longest reception over 20.5 yards. If there's one guy on the Vikings that's going to make himself available deeper in the field, going to be able to make a super athletic play and double coverage, right now, I think it's him, and he's really been taking advantage of the opportunity he's been given. And like I keep saying, and hopefully I'm not jinxing this, I do expect this Vikings team to be down. And if that's the case, there's going to be some situations, whether it's on third down, whether it's in the second half, where they have to sling the ball. And if that's the case, over 20.5 longest reception for Jordan Addison, I think is a good one. We can talk about Hawkinson all day. One thing I will recommend for people, though, for the Hawkinson props, this time I would look more towards yards than I would look towards receptions. Obviously, I've talked about Kirk Cousins, and I don't know how many times he will throw the ball. It might not be as high of a number as the number is set. So I'd look towards the yards, not as much just the receptions there. But somebody I will look at for receptions is Brandon Ayuk, over 4.5. Obviously, with no Debo there, this is a guy that's been hovering around 4 per game. You have seen him get 5 in some, but I think with the elevated production, with the matchup against this Vikings secondary, he can get the job done. So a couple ones that I like, but with that Hawkinson one, Andy, what do you think about that? Usually I'm a receptions guy with him, but this time around, I think I'm looking more towards yards.
Yeah, I see where you're going on that one. 8 targets in each of the last couple weeks, and yeah, Cousins is going to have to spread it out here quite a bit. So yeah, 51 and 50 yards. He's averaging 8.4 yards per catch. So if you kind of do the math, if you expect him to get over, this receptions prop, he gets really really close to the yards. So I think the books have done a pretty good job with it. But yeah, I would tend to err on the side of like these receivers for Minnesota going over, because if one team is going to be up on the other, you would think it would be the 49ers. So you do have that in play. I like some of these longest receptions here, Andrew. You brought one up. I'll give you another one. I mean, Hawkinson, his longest reception, I believe, is 17 and a half. This guy he had a 21 yarder against Chicago, 19 against Kansas City, 16 against Carolina, 21 against the Chargers, 24 against Philly. So he's getting over on that one. And I also have Juwan Jennings over 16 and a half longest reception. No Debo Samuel. He would be the obvious one. And even with the weapons that they've had the last few weeks, he's gone over in 4 straight games. He's kind of like a Jordan Addison type where he's not getting a lot of volume, but he's got those explosive plays. So that one I kind of liked. And then we talked about Christian McCaffrey. Maybe the biggest injury tonight is Trent Williams for the 49ers, who looks like he's not going to play. And that offensive line without him is a completely different offensive line. I mean, he is one of the top 5 offensive linemen in the league. This George Kittle number is high, 48 and a half. I wonder if they're going to need Kittle to be a blocker tonight to help out on that offensive line. And I wonder if Kittle's numbers just don't really materialize tonight. 4.5 catches, that sounds like an awful lot. And I know that you say, well, they're missing Debo, but they're also missing their best offensive lineman. If you don't protect Brock Purdy, it doesn't matter who's running routes. So I wonder if Kittle's going to be used a lot more in the blocking. I would look at Kittle towards the unders, especially under this 4.5 total. If McCaffrey's there, Elijah Mitchell is healthy, so they've got good running backs. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if this is a big-time running back type of game for San Francisco. Helps protect Purdy. Kittle gets used a lot more in the pass blocking game. So, and then you do have to look at KJ Osborne. He did go over his total last week. His total sitting at 3.5 receptions and around 40 yards. It's the obvious kind of play where it's like, well, Justin Jefferson's out. Just take the guy that's replacing him. I worry about plays like that where it's like, okay, yeah, he's replacing Justin Jefferson, but he ain't Justin Jefferson. So, he might be easy to take for the 49ers to take out, but I like those longest reception plays. I think we got 3 of them. If you play 3 of them, you probably hit 2, maybe all 3 of them on that one. So, we've got a Monday Night Football play that is up at WagerTalk.com. Kind of a calm week here for myself. There's no UFC this weekend, so we won't have any UFC plays that are up, but you can grab that Monday Night Football play up. Andrew has one as well. Andrew's coming off a really, really nice Sunday. Andrew, I will tell you, you talked about, it is interesting. You talked about, do you think this goes over? I have noted that the 49ers over 24.5 team total might be worth a look. They score 30-plus points in 5 straight. They play 17 in that just like brutal game against Cleveland where their kicker misses 2 field goals. So the books drop their team total down to 24.5. This is a Minnesota team that averages giving up 22.5 points per game. I thought this total was a little bit low. Is there a big difference between 24.5 and like 26.5? Probably not. Not many key numbers there, but I mean, if I think that it's going to go over, yeah, I like this 49ers over the team total. Any opinions on that one?
Well, and I think you look at, you don't want to overreact to a team coming off a loss or things like that. But I mean, look at what all the great teams do, right? I mean, there's a lot of times across all sports, I look at statistics, try and find some patterns and trends for how teams respond after disappointing performances. They put up 17 last week, right? That's very unusual from their usual 42, 35, 30. That's quite a bit of a drop off for them. And what I always say is that when you lose a game you're unexpected to lose, I mean, nobody ever expects to lose a game, but the team you play the next week can really make or break, kind of the vibe around the locker room for the next few weeks. And what better team to get defensively than the Vikings when you're rested? I mean, it's a pretty good recipe for success, I'd say. So I look at that as well. And the only thing I would ask you is your thoughts on the first half team total, because you're the one that I think really got me into narrowing it down on those type of first half wagers. Do you have the 49ers pegged as a team that will slow things down and run the ball out type of thing, or are they a team that keeps their foot on the gas pedal? Because obviously looking at some of these scores, I mean, they almost average 30-some points a game, but in this particular situation, would you say that there's one better than the other, or just stick with the full game?
Well, they have it. They have the Vikings team total for the first half 8.5. I kind of like that one. And then they have the 49ers 12.5. I love that 12.5 number because a touchdown and 2 field goals get you there. I think you could see some longer, kind of more drawn out drives from San Francisco if they're able to run the ball. Like, I can't imagine you're going to give Christian McCaffrey a full workload. I mean, the guy was questionable as of last night, and it's an oblique injury. That's not something you want to mess with because, I mean, when you see those in MLB or any other sport, it's like it's a 4 to 6 week injury, and you can't be messing around with McCaffrey like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if you see a lot of McCaffrey, Jordan Mason, Elijah Mitchell with Brock Purdy kind of, peppering some wide open guys on play action. But I think they run some time off the clock. I don't know. I think I would stay away from the team total for the first half. I think the 49ers can kind of break down this Vikings team with their offense. Like, it's still a brutal offense when you're facing just rush after rush after rush, and then there's Brock Purdy hitting Brandon Ayuk for 15 yards, or Juwan Jennings. So I like the full game because I think they could have a little bit bigger second half if they start to pile on Minnesota, and Minnesota gets a little bit worn down. So I do have a defensive prop for you. We haven't talked much about defensive props, and there was one I really liked. Jordan Hicks. You have his tackles and assists at 8.5. He's a big-time linebacker, and if I think that San Francisco is going to rush the ball a lot, I like Hicks to be involved in a lot of these tackles and assists. It's only 8.5. This guy's gone way over in the last few games. He's had 10 the last couple weeks. He leads the team in assists, and it's only minus 130. It seems just a little bit low. This guy plays 98% of the defensive snaps, so he's in there on just about everything. So if I think San Francisco is going to have a lot of short, kind of running game, type of things, he's just going to be involved. And every time he sticks his nose in there and gets half involved, you get an assist there. It's great. So I like these linebackers that get involved. And every game that the 49ers have been up in at least a score, they've rushed the ball 31 times or more. So expect a lot of action around the line of scrimmage. I think that ends up being a lot of defensive numbers there for Jordan Hicks. So,
Andy,
all right, Andrew,
really quick.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, I don't know if you'll get a kick out of this or not, but yesterday when did you see there was like a miscommunication on the play where Tua was going to hand it off to a guy in motion? It didn't work out, so he just slid, like he went down. So I had a buddy that had a sack prop on the guy that ended up going to touch him, right? Like just to say he's down or whatever. And my friend was like, that's got to be counted as a sack. Like somebody has to have, put him down. Nope. So it gets classified as a team sack. So no individual gets credit for that. It's a team sack altogether. So Tua gave himself up. He slid down, on his back, pretty much saying, whatever, this play is done for. And I'm watching the game with someone they needed one more sack from the guy that went and touched him. And he's like, that's got to be a sack from him. So for anybody out there, you have to actually throw the guy to the ground. You can't touch him while he's already on the ground. But I got to get more into those defensive props because I feel like it's one of the softer markets remaining. I mean, everything's so sharp in the NFL these days. The tackle and assist props seem pretty good.
Yeah, we cashed on Max Crosby to have a sack yesterday against the Bears, and yeah, he got there. So, I believe the rule is it does not count as a rush attempt for the quarterback if they make if the ball it comes over their shoulder for a passing motion, then it becomes like that's not a rush anymore. But yeah, on those when the quarterback gives himself up, yeah, it's not an individual sack, which has got to be just infuriating. So, and we do have to talk about of all guys that you would have thought would not lead their team in rushing and receiving, it's our boy AJ Dillon. Now, whenever you hear like, oh, this guy led his team in rushing and receiving, you're like, oh my God, what do you have, like a 200-yard day? No, like 70 yards and stuff. So,
yeah, exactly.
What do you like? We always we poke fun at AJ Dillon here. I mean, what do you do with this Packers team? It feels like a props under bonanza, doesn't it?
I'm happy you mentioned it, Andy, because for anybody that watches us, like at least they can say, okay, well, at least these guys will talk about it when he does something good too, and not just when he does something bad. It's frustrating, I'm on a pretty good run with my NFL props, and my only loser yesterday was Christian Watson over. I thought, getting 51.5 was a pretty good number for the guy that's supposed to lead the team in targets and kind of be the lead guy, and a decent matchup, I thought, against the Broncos team that's like 30th pass defense. No, I mean, you would have thought the Packers played the number 3 pass defense yesterday. It was very frustrating to watch. Decision-making and play calling, between those two things, I think you have to peg it a lot towards Jordan Love a little bit, trying to be hero. I don't know what that play was at the end of the game, but did someone tell him he needed 7 points to tie the ball game? Because they needed 3, and yet he throws a pass that's like 50 yards. That was frustrating to look at, but I'll tell you what. I mean, you talked earlier about Madison with attempts. I think that as far as Dillon or Jones, that's what I got to be looking at moving forward and next week with this Packers team. Funny enough, they're actually playing Madison and the Vikings. And despite that, hopefully promising matchup defensively, I still think that this Packers team, I'm tired of hoping and saying, well, now it's a good matchup. Now they have the Broncos. Now they have the Vikings defense. When you do that in handicapping, you go broke. You have to face reality and you use your eye test, what you're seeing. Right now, this team's going to be a dink and dunk, run the ball team until further notice, And I'm not trying to hate on Jordan Love. He's still young, but it's been rough. But I'll tell you what, with AJ Dillon, broken clock is right twice a day. And when you run like he does, every now and then people are going to just like go down. And he's a big dude. I saw a graphic they put up, Andy. He is the heaviest running back in the league.
No, he runs. Did
you see that? He weighs the most in the league for running backs. Yeah. So every now and then you break some tackles, man. You break some tackles.
It's not surprising. His speed would confirm that, absolutely. So,
and Najee Harris was up there too.
Najee had a decent game. That was good to see. The Steelers, I don't know how they're 4-2. It really blows my mind. But I will say, I think getting Deontay Johnson back, I've said that, I think it makes their offense just so much better. It wouldn't surprise me if they got much, much better as the season goes on. We got a big week of games coming up. I don't believe any teams are on bye, so we've got a ton of props to take advantage of coming up. So let's do our numbers we hope to see. And I will start with my first one here, Andrew. When a guy goes under his prop, when he's kind of been on a run of overs, people tend to, go away from it. And it bit me this week. I'm going to go right back to Stephon Diggs over against the Buccaneers. Somebody in our comment section posted that the coaches talked about, getting other guys involved in the offense besides Stephon Diggs. And sure enough, when that game started, the announcers were just like, the Bills coaches have said they're going to give it to everybody but Stephon Diggs this week. And it worked out great, losing to the Patriots. So I hope they're proud of themselves. But I watched that game. He had 58 yards. Allen overthrew him barely on a 75-yard touchdown, would have walked into the end zone, and he dropped one right at the end, and he still had 12 targets. I think his stat line was a little deceiving, and I wonder if the books lower the number, and the Bills go, maybe we should throw it to our best player. Other teams seem to have success doing that. Maybe we should do that more. So it's one of those where you have a big-name superstar. They tried to get away from him. It really didn't work. I think they go right back to him, and it's another get-right spot. So kind of using the theory, a guy who had a bunch of overs goes under, you might come right back to him. So that's my first one. Another couple notes, Alvin Kamara over 4.5 receptions against the Colts. I've never seen a quarterback check the ball down more than what is going on in New Orleans. I've never seen anything like it, where Derek Carr looks at his first read and then just dumps it right off to Kamara for 4 yards. I like Dameon Pierce to have a nice week running the ball. They get Carolina. It doesn't get much better than that. Both teams off of a bye, but I think Dameon Pierce, his number could be pretty low. Singletary had a good number of rushing yards in the last game, but I think Pierce comes over. Josh Dobbs, just rinse and repeat over his rushing total. I know they're up against Baltimore, but the guy just talks and run. And honestly, I think Josh Dobbs he's kind of advertising for other teams. Kyler Murray is going to be back soon, and the Cardinals are going to play him. So Dobbs is going to do whatever it takes to look good. And then Zach Ertz went under his total, and I would continue to look at Zach Ertz under his total. Trey McBride, young tight end, looks really good for Arizona. And honestly, Zach Ertz could be a nice trade piece for a team that is looking to upgrade, that has playoff aspirations. So if you're the Cardinals, you may want to keep Zach Ertz healthy and not give him a ton of volume. So those are some numbers I was hoping to see. I guess is this Rams, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, is this going to be infuriating to figure out which one they're going to use the rest of the year, Andrew? Like, I feel like it's kind of a stay away. Like, it was all Cooper Kupp last week. This week it's all Puka Nacua, and I feel like you're just chasing your tail trying to figure out what's going on with them.
I've learned it the hard way. If you're trying hard to figure out whose day it's going to be, you stay away. You don't want to be sitting there wondering who's going to be the guy. And, fortunately for me yesterday with the Philadelphia situation, I've just realized that right now it's A.J. Brown's team over Smith's team. And sometimes you can figure that out, and sometimes you go into every game and you have no idea. Kind of a decent segue into that, Andy. In his return, T. Higgins was super quiet. And looking at his matchup next week is against the Niners. If there's ever a team that you need to have depth against and not just have one guy carrying the load, it's probably when you're playing against the Niners. So I think that I'm very, very curious to see what type of numbers I get for receptions, but specifically the yards there for T. Higgins. He's coming off a game of 2 receptions, 4 targets for 20 yards in their win against Seattle. I think he could be a lot better in that matchup. Obviously, a team we talk about all show that scores 30, 35 points a game in the Niners. You got to put some numbers up against a team like that. It's insane to me how many different players there are for us to talk about. And I had Kamara and Pierce circled. So that probably means you and I should upgrade those to whatever 1% more it was that we liked them at. Because I really like those 2 matchups. And one that I've had my eye on here, and I do have to give you credit. We talked about this together, though, about Derrick Henry. And I was telling some friends about this over the weekend. He either goes crazy or he's very mid. There's nowhere in between with this guy right now. He has the Falcons next week, and they rank number 8 as far as rushing yards allowed. And looking at his number, for everybody out there, this past weekend, 97 against Baltimore. Week before, 43 yards against Indy. Week before that, 122 against Cincy. Week before that, 20 against Cleveland. Is anybody else recognizing a little bit of a trend here? This guy either has himself a day or you can't find him with binoculars. So I'm going to go ahead and look towards the under if I can get a pretty good number on that. And another under I'm kind of looking ahead to is Darren Waller. Andy, I'm curious your thoughts on this, but when you look at some of these matchups that the Giants have had, right? Even if against some good teams, they've had the Bills, the Dolphins, the Niners, even the Seahawks took them down quite a bit. In those particular matchups, they needed Waller somebody has to be open downfield. They had to stretch the field. The guy's putting up like 70, 80, 90 yards. But now you've got the Jets, a team that just does a really good job of, number one, mixing in the run game and the pass game, killing the clock. They're up there in the league for time of possession. But number 2, they're going to recognize who your number 1 guy is, and they're going to make anybody else but that guy beat you. And right now, Waller has clearly been that guy. So I'm going to look towards the under for him next week. Waller's been heat checking quite a bit here, Andy. 98 yards last week. I think things slowed down against the Jets.
Heat check. Darren Waller and heat check. Oh, my Lord.
He's the only option. He's the only option.
The heat check. I mean, that Jets and Giants game could look an awful lot like the Commanders and Giants, a 14-7 game. You look at some team totals under that one. So yeah, there's going to be some really really good spots. We always, of course, we got to check the weather report, check the injury report, and see how teams look. So guys, go ahead and hit the like button and leave us a comment with your best bet for Monday Night Football. Always love checking these. We had some really good ones. I saw somebody cashed on Jared Goff going over. That game script worked out really nice for that one. I saw Boley had a really nice one on Stephon Diggs. So we've had some really, really good props left in the comments. So tell us what you like on Monday Night Football. And again, please, guys, you do not have to bet too many bets. Andrew and I went over quite a few props. We're not betting all of them. You can turn a profit with one bet. It's very, very easy. Don't overexpose yourself. If you had a rough Sunday, just calm down, take it easy. Don't make it worse. If you had a great Sunday, you got some units to play. Just make sure you protect your profit and you make sure you walk away with a profitable week in the NFL. Very, very important to protect that bankroll. So, Andrew, real quick, tell everyone what you have up and where we can find you.
Yeah, once again, so far, just one play up at WagerTalk.com in the prop market for tonight, Niners and Vikings. It's a quiet night tonight across the NHL, but it is a jam-packed slate tomorrow. Doing pretty well across the board, especially with those totals play. I will have a play up for tomorrow, have a spot that I have my eye on. And guys, don't forget about those long-term packages, whether it's just 7 days or 30 days. A lot better. You're saving money, and you're not just buying those 1 days. You're getting those longer in advance, and you're getting the plays right to your email right away. So always fun doing the show with you, Andy. Appreciate everybody that watched this. Guys, please show us some love. Hit the like button for us.
Absolutely. And can someone speak to the NHL and try and explain why we have this really long season? You have one game on Monday and then like 17 on Tuesday. Can someone please explain this for NHL? It just drives me nuts. Like, all right, Canadians and Sabres. And then what do we have tomorrow? Oh, all the games. So
every team.
Yeah. Bummer about Connor McDavid being out for a couple weeks. So that adjusts my strategy. So yeah, we got one NFL play up that is up for tonight. Pretty quiet week. I think we'll have several NHL plays. Low volume. We've only had 5 NHL plays, Andrew. We're 4-1. So I will happily keep doing that for the rest of the season. Just one play here or there, especially when there's one game on Mondays. So go and hit the like button and leave us a comment, guys. And good luck on Monday Night Football. Andrew and I will be back on Friday to get you ready for a huge slate of games on Sunday. Every team is going to be playing this week, so what means we'll have a ton of props. So join us on Friday morning. Good luck on your plays, and we will see you over on Friday on Prop It Up.